Knows Fraser Club? We all do.
We all do, yeah.
Okay, well listen, I thought we must all have little stories how we met Fraser. I know I do. So I thought if you would come here, we'll make a little group and we'll just tell each other our stories, how we met Fraser. Yeah,
everybody during the night, everybody will have a chance for 2 or 3 minutes to do a little tribute of their own or whatever they want to say. They don't even have to whitewash, and if they're a little critical, that's okay too.
There's no whitewashing.
No whitewashing in the white.
Truth. Anyway. So listen, this is not a big public talk. This is just to kind of tell each other our stories. So if you want to be part of it, come. Please come.
Hippie party, and we were not yet warped, but we were doing our best to warp speed ahead to the 21st century. And we were right about things. We were right about our protests, our environmental protests, and we were right about the need for clubs like Megatripolis, and they've continued to do well. And Fraser brought people together to do these clubs, and you know, he came in and took the scene further. He took ideas that were all around from all the people who had all these wonderful ideas. And, you know, he'd be the last person to say that, you know, he wasn't dependent on other people coming in with their ideas and their things, because it was their party. You know, he was the glamorous focal point. I say Fraser is a golden boy, and his heart was the, you know, us taking a warp speed ahead trip into the 21st century. You know, we can create the future we want, and he truly believes that, you know, the Zippies can create a better future, and you know, the concretes will just realise they're missing the fun if they don't join us. So there we go, you know, the Zippies taking us to a better world.
Thank you, Lizzie. I first met Fraser at a picnic on Hampstead Heath, along with a whole lot of other people, the likes of whom I've never seen before in my life, because they were just 10% brighter and 10% shinier, and I was just fascinated by what it was that made them so different. And I did kind of realise that they had, you know, obviously Fraser was the one who started the magazine, but he was also a bit of a catalyst for something that was brewing and needed to happen. And what was the thing that really got me the most was that, partly because it was something that was due to happen, but I think it happened a lot faster, was all the scenes coming together and just mixing in the way that they hadn't done before. You know, you had a meeting of the tribes, you know, people that maybe 10 years ago would never have thought of hanging out together or socialising together, were suddenly plotting to change the world together. And I just found that amazing. On a personal level, Fraser, my goodness, he's introduced me to partners, to ideas. I've done artwork for him, I've painted faces for him, I've done so many different things. But one of the most interesting things for me is that despite what some people think, he does actually listen. And what comes back at you is always interesting. It may not be what you want to hear, but it's always interesting. And there aren't enough people in the world that do that, I can tell you right now. So, for me, Fraser's just somebody who is just different. And that's really important, because it's when we celebrate our unique qualities. Don't worry about what people say about us. You know, don't worry about the negative stuff to a certain point, but just get on and do it anyway. I think that's quite magical. And magic's what we're here for, because there's not enough magic in the world anymore. And I'm really glad that we're doing this tonight, because to a certain point, you know, there are clubs, festivals. It's not just people keeping the flame alive. That flame has been passed on to so many different people. It's now become such a huge global phenomenon. Who would have known that, you know, something that started off in tiny little clubs in people's houses would have got so big? My goodness. We thought it would, and we kind of believed it would, but I think for me it was when I were using techno for the first time for washing powder adverts. It It was just like, my God, it's really it's like, we did it! We're mainstream. But, you know, it's going to take a long, it's like what happened in the 60s. It took a long, long time for a small amount of people who had a great effect at the time, for that to send ripples out. And what's fantastic now is those ripples are going faster and faster because we're communicating with each other faster and faster. So at the same time as people are becoming more disconnected through consumerism, through addiction to media, we're also becoming more connected in the way that we can express ourselves and at the speed that we can express ourselves, which makes events like this more important. So I do hope this won't be just a one-off. I hope that also Fraser will be able to join us for many more events, and have a great evening. Thanks a lot. Cheers.
Okay, any more? Yeah, I'd like personal tributes. Please try to keep it concise. I would just say just because of time.
The red button.
Yeah, Fraser changed my life. Changed a lot of lives. It changed my life. I just came here from America when I lived in America for 23 years. I came here to revisit my hippie youth for a summer, and I ran into Fraser Clark at the Wharf. And the moment I walked through the doors of the Wharf, my life changed. And when it was time to go back to America, I couldn't do it. And I called my friends and I said, I'm dead. I'm not coming back. Sell everything. You know, so everything, 23 years of stuff, computers, cars, musical instruments, videos of my kids, everything gone. But I was having a great time. You know, so I was so grateful. I didn't care. Fraser walked off from me anyway. I didn't. But he can walk off with all of us, like I said. Because when he's given to me in my life, the change that it catalysed within me, money could never buy. So thank you so much, Fraser. Thank you.
Ryan.
I met Fraser through doing the walk. I was acting in the walk,
Ryan.
Maybe some other people here, of a 24-hour play written by Neil Oram, who's over there, and directed by Ken Campbell, who recently passed away, who we miss very much. And so we've been acting, doing the play at various theatres, including the Roundhouse. And when this 24-hour play went on in the middle of the night, you know, there'd be 10 people on stage, no one in the audience. Or like 2 people, you know, like you go to do a scene in the bed and there'd be like 2 members of the audience asleep in the bed. And you'd have to go, get off the fucking stage, I'm acting. Get out. So, what's that? There you go. So we were doing the warp, and it was fantastic, but it wasn't what you'd call a sellout hit. You know, in the early hours of the morning, it was kind of dead. It would pick up a bit at the end. And then I don't know exactly how it happened, but somehow Fraser and Ken and Neil and whoever got together and had this genius idea to put the play in with the kind of club culture, and realising that there was this continuous link from the hippies in the 60s that had those kind of progressive ideas, and the ravers as the kind of like new summer of love, the second generation of hippies. And so this, by putting it in together with a clubbers love staying up all night and listening to people talk about weird shit like UFOs and drugs. It was like the perfect blend between the content of the play, about all this kind of mad countercultural stuff, and finding its audience. And suddenly it went from there being 2 people in the middle of the night asleep, you know, totally dead, to thousands of people. And when you were doing the scenes, you'd be kind of like, you know, trying to struggle through the audience. So I don't know how that combination came about, but I think it was really magical. And so many people came together at that time. So many people came together at that time to work together, who are still working together, who've gone on to do lots of other projects. You know, so many projects happening in Liverpool at the moment, the 491, so many Luminopolis, all the different John Crow's work, all the things that we're still involved with today. So just to echo your statement, really, that I hope that this is the starting, you know, I mean, it hasn't really stopped, but that we'll actually take the energy built up through tonight and carry it on in more events and more projects, bringing together creativity, spirituality,
fun and a new way of kind of enjoying ourselves and coming together in the future. Thank you.
Phoenix.
Hello, I was quite a young raver with acid house going off when I first got this leaflet saying Shamaniki's on for a fiver. I was pretty skippy them days, but I thought I'm going to spend that fiver, I'm going to go to that. And I met the Evolution Collective with Fraser, James Hamilton, Shauna on it, Martin Healer, Martin Scooby, and inspired us, the whole generation. And we started getting the first Mega Tripolist at Marquee, and we were involved with a lot of protests in those days, the M11 and different road protests and Typhoid Down. And we used to come to the club and stick up posters on the walls and leaflets, give them out to everyone, go, come on, get out to the city, come to this protest, and do this, that, and the other. And Mega Tripolist was an inspiration to all of us, you know, from a generation that didn't really know what had happened, some of the stuff in the 60s and 70s. We just come into a bit of acid house, and then suddenly there was this club where they were telling us about all these different things, and Jamie Reed and the Sex Pistols came and did talks, and it was a conscious club where there was people were talking about all these different things that were going on and you hadn't heard about, and you know, mind expanding consciousness, things that you know people needed to hear, and definitely inspired a whole generation really to get out, to meet with other people, to get into the psychedelic culture and the things that were going on. And to us, it was the best thing that was going on. You know, so much consciousness, and it, you know, to meet so many other people. You know, other freaks, other people who were into that alternative culture was amazing. And Fraser and all the Evolution Collective. I remember early tripping days looking at the Encyclopedia Psychedelica, and then there was the Evolution copy. And it had so much in it, and it was just, you know, opened up all these worlds to us that we hadn't known existed before. And Fraser and that whole generation before inspired so many people. And I kind of describe Synergy and Luminopolis as kind of the grandchildren of the original Mega Tripolist. And that conscious club, in what various different names, inspired by the Evolution Collective, has carried on in London over the last 15 years under various different names. And it's amazing, you know, that spirit carries on. And, you know, in the squat party scene and in the conscious clubbing scene. And that was inspired by Fraser, by James Hamilton, Martin Scooby, all these beautiful people who got it together. And inspired a whole generation really, and that generation took it on, carried on, and we're seeing the next generation coming up now doing the same thing, squatting places, taking action, and it's a better world because of those seeds that were planted at that time. And big thanks to Fraser and all the Evolution crew. Keep up the evolution. One love. Keep networking.
Thank you. I'm sure there's more in the room who want to like to come up and say something. Say a lot, just a little. Behind me. Fantastic.
Hey, so we're telling stories about how we met Fraser. And I know a lot of people in the room have met Fraser and have got stories to tell. But I met him after I'd been a good Buddhist for many years. And I'd been married for many years and had quite a sheltered life. And my marriage had come to an end, and I got quite a sense of freedom, as maybe you do when you finish a marriage. And I was going kind of out and about places, and I came to Mega Tripolist. And Mega Tripolist was in full swing at the time. And if you were there, you know, you remember it, it was absolutely packed. And I heard the name Fraser, a bit like a god. He was the kind of mythical, invisible mastermind behind the scenes. But it was a club where, you know, people did things. You could give talks or whatever. And I suddenly had this mad idea, my God, I could give a talk on Buddhism. And I'd never had that idea before, but I was looking for Fraser. Very hard to find him. He was kind of right in the thick of the crowd in the back somewhere. But after a couple of weeks, it took me a few weeks, I found Fraser in the middle of the crowd by the front desk, I remember. And I shouted in his ear, hello. And he shouted back, hello. And I said, can I give a talk? And he shouted back, yes. And I just met him 2 minutes ago. And he just said yes. And I was kind of blown away. And actually my reaction was, oh shit. Because suddenly there was this yes, and I had to do something. And it came about, the talk was crap, I have to tell you. But what struck me was Fraser just said yes to me at that time. And I thought, my God, I've met somebody. After that, one little thing is I was part of a collective. We were going to Glastonbury places teaching meditation. And we just had this idea we could do a little festival. And and we'd never had that idea before, BJ and I and others. And we had no idea whatsoever how to do a festival, so we thought, let's go and talk to Fraser. So we did. I remember going to his flat up in West Hampstead. Very simple life, Fraser lives. Just him and a kettle and a cooker and baked beans, as far as I could see. Nothing fancy at all. And we just sat down and talked to him about how you did a festival, because we hadn't got a clue. And we came to this deal that we'd do the practical stuff, and he would come and do the music for the festival. And he'd call it the Parallel University Summer School. And it happened, and he was so helpful to us at that time. And I think without Fraser, we would have just not had the confidence or the ingredients to start the festival. And we didn't even have a name for the festival. We didn't have a name, and we were searching for a name, and we couldn't find a name. And I don't know if this is true, but Fraser claims the credit for creating our name, which was Buddhafield. So then we became the Buddhafield Festival, and it's still going strong, and I certainly love Buddhafield. But Fraser claims the credit, truthfully or not, I don't know, for creating the name Buddhafield, but very definitely for helping us with the very, very first Buddhafield Festival. And he's been to pretty much everyone since, I think. And the only little complaint I have against Fraser is he keeps bringing his dog, his little dog. I can't remember what his name is. Johnsy. He keeps bringing his dog to Buddhafield. Apart from that, I love Fraser. Fraser is fantastic. So if anyone else has a story of how they met Fraser.
Well, some of you might recognize me. I was the host in this room in the 95 show, so it's nice to be back. I wouldn't have missed it for anything, given the coincidences with the party and Fraser being ill. And I thought about this for a while, it being the best time of my life. I'm pretty old and been around a while, but the time that I spent at Megatropolis was the hardiest, partiest lifestyle that a person could imagine. So, good to be here. There you go. It's been a long time. They call me Microphone John. But Fraser was picked up by the intuitive flow that had caught me in America. I'm a rainbow family gatherer from way back. And I had an idea to come to America and find a enlightened crew and take them back to America and go back and forth a couple times doing enlightened parties, as it were. And Rosie introduced me to Fraser at a meeting of Megatropolis before it really took off. And next thing I know is has to be the host in this room. So it's very nostalgic and for the most part, Fraser went back to America, and the absence left it open for the trouble that happened in the club. And many of you don't know much about that, but many of you do. So I just wanted to say hello to you all again, and maybe we'll maybe I'll be back a little bit later. Cheers.
Somebody else want to come in?
Yeah. I wanted to come in when they were talking about Fraser and the raves because I think it's my fault that Fraser got into raving. Where's Martin Scooby? Because I met Fraser and Martin Scooby on the same night, and it was down at Whirligig, and I think we're talking about late 1988, early 1989, and I was there. I'd already started going to acid house parties and was already clubbing for a couple of years. And so when I arrived at the Whirligig, I was starting to look for something else beyond the kind of thumpity-thump techno music. Not that I disliked it at all, but I was just looking for something more eclectic. And I was going down to the Whirligig and by chance found myself in the corner with Fraser and Scooby and drummer Mark, who I think Inky Bonk is somewhere in the building as well. And really did feel some sort of sense of connection, and we started to nurture things over the next few months, and then I believe that it was the Sunrise Summer Festival 1989 that we took Darling the dog with us and did the whole convoy thing, queuing up with hundreds and hundreds of cars and going parking miles away from where the venue was, and eventually finding this field. And he'd kind of told me all these stories about some of the hippie events he had gone to, but you could just see in his eyes when he was confronted with this event, 25,000 people, and the kind of like whole kind of anarchic organisation. You know, he was home because the guy just thought, this is it. I absolutely love this thing. And it was probably like from there that he then went on to build the Megatripolis and the other events. And you know, and sure, he was going to find it anyway. He was going to find it anyway, but I was quite pleased that when I was coming from the other side, from clubbing and from techno, and I was looking for something more organic, that I was meeting people who were coming more from the organic side, looking for some techno. Somewhere in the middle, you know, we balanced out, and the whole zipping movement happened. So, as much as I take credit for taking him to his first rave, you know, I feel like, you know, he maybe brought me and introduced me to festival culture as well. And when I think about the first time I went to Glastonbury, and how you walk up, you know, you go up to the gate and you sort of think, I've got this Fraser Clark worded blag about some space that I'm going to go in and work on the inside of the festival. And you don't even need to say it, because the guy that is actually on the gate is someone that we met whilst we were camping there 2 months before, and just literally waves you in. Waves you in. It's like fabulous. So I came here to make my peace with Fraser. When I worked with him, I began to bear a big grudge and a lot of resentment. Felt like I was doing lots and lots of work at the walk parties, and felt what was it all about? It burnt out quite a few times, you know. Always said to him, I love you, but I'm never going to work with you ever again. And tonight when I heard about this, I sort of thought, oh, not sure, but all these sorts of emotions. And in the end, I just had to. I just knew there were so many people that I'd met along the way here, you know, that had to be here as well. So, Ali Baldwin.
Okay, I just want to remind people that the main event of the night at 1 o'clock is in the main dance floor room, the healing ceremony of Fraser. He'll be in the main dance floor room, and everybody from here, we can go to there. This will shut down for half an hour. So keep that in mind, 1 o'clock. There's also a procession through the club at 12:30 that people are welcome to join as well. But in the 60s, it was still accepted leaders as such. Ken Kesey, perhaps Abby Hoffman, if you want to choose it. The left had the Weathermen and SDS. There were actual proper leadership going on. By the time Fraser came to the fore, he'd been a hippie in the 60s in Ibiza. By the 80s, when he did Encyclopedia Psychedelica, which led up to the whole founding of Megatripolis, leadership was a thing that a lot of people were very skeptical of. Now, can people come in on that? What does leadership in the counterculture consist of? Did you consider Fraser a leader? Did you have doubts about that sort of thing? I want to use Fraser as a metaphor for a wider thing. Or is leadership dead? Are we all a communal thing, or is there still such a thing? Someone want to come in on that? Phoenix? Huh? You want to come into that? Leadership in the counterculture. Come on, Phoenix. You're very suited to talk about it. Start us off on that. What does leadership in the counterculture mean? How did you regard Fraser? Did you see Fraser as a leader?
It's not my favourite one, because I'm into non-hierarchical, everyone leading themselves and getting on with it, and self-empowerment.
Except he's a
I read something from Encyclopedia Psychedelica. It said something about be your own guru. Don't give your power outside yourself and all that.
So how did you see Fraser? Did you see him as a leader?
I saw him as an inspirer, and part of a collective that was pushing forward the evolution of the planet and getting together. It's not my favourite word, leader. I like coordinators and non-hierarchical titles and things, but, you know, a lot of people lead, you know, leaders, somebody argued with me recently, something about it, you know, leaders can do good things, you know, and bosses can do good things, but also leaders can lead us into war and destruction and a lot of other things. And I think as humans we've got to take more of our own decisions, more self-empower ourselves, and you know, generally work in circles more, work non-hierarchically, work collectively to create better kind of futures. Because when you work as a group, and you work as a circle, rather than relying on one single person, sometimes those decisions that person makes are really good and they're moving forward, sometimes they're not so good. But when you work as a group, you can check more references with people and say, what does the group feel about it? And it takes a bit more time. We've worked a lot in our groups with consensus and talking it around people and working things out. So I think you know, a lot of what Fraser was about was new consciousness, new paradigms, new ways of doing things. And you know, a lot in the activist scene, the protest scene, been to a lot of big international protests and things, and at them you get like these spokes councils, and it amazed me when I went to Prague. You had kind of like people from all these different countries from all over the world, and gathered in a circle, and they kind of, you know, had a facilitator from each group sit in a closer circle, and the group talked to them to say what they wanted to spokes council. It was translated through about 3 different languages, and it showed me that people can work as a group without leaders, non-hierarchically, and discussing and working things out. And yeah, there may be a time for leaders, and people might be into leaders at various points, but I think we need to work more as a circle, more as a group, more tribally, share the information, take action, and empower yourselves. Be your own leader, be your own guru, take action, keep networking, and get on with it. Can't wait around for the leaders, can you? The governments, just get on with it.
There goes a real leader. I mean, Fraser came out of the Ken Kesey, Tim Leary tradition of sort of the laughing leader. It wasn't traditional left-wing leadership type of thing that had been dominant. It was a new sort of thing that came about in the 60s, sort of the self-defacing leaders, and yet they were leaders at the same time. Hard one to describe. The English ones here, John Hoppy Hopkins and people like that, by the 80s seem to have disappeared off the scene, basically. They were doing their own thing, but Sid Roth was around, but even Sid had lost a lot of credibility. I don't know if it was the English skepticism thing or what drove them away, but Fraser entered a situation in the 80s and the early 90s where there was a real leadership vacuum, as I see it. So he had an opportunity there, in a way. And his mentors were in America, Leary, especially Leary, to some extent McKenna. How did they see Fraser in those days? Did you have resentments? Did you have good feelings about his leadership? Did you feel it was important? Did you feel it was in the way? Anybody want to take me up on that one? Martin?
There wasn't any leadership in Fraser, it was collective. Fraser is an amazing publicist, as we all know. It's one of his skills. But I'd like to go into a story, really. Michael Eavis pulled the plug one year on a field that we were doing in Glastonbury, and we sued Michael Eavis in Glastonbury. And the court case was one of the most amazing things I've been involved with. Neil Moran was involved in it, I was involved with it, Fraser Clark was involved with it. And for once, Michael Eavis had to eat his words. He had to eat his words because we'd agreed that we'd have this chilled out field. First dance field at Glastonbury, 24 hours. Michael Eavis went to court and said he chucked us out of the festival because 24-hour music wasn't allowed. And after 2 days, our brief got Michael Eavis in the witness box and said, are you saying that 24-hour music doesn't happen at Glastonbury? Michael Eavis then turned around and said it never happened at Glastonbury. He was asked 3 times. He was asked if he had anything to do with the programme.
What year is this?
Well, this was 1990. He said he had complete editorial control over the programme, and after the 3rd time being asked, we handed him the programme and asked him to read out the last page, and he said NME stage, 24-hour non-stop music. And at that point he lost his case, and we got compensation, which was quite nice. Michael Eavis then stopped Fraser ever going to Glastonbury again, but Fraser of course sneaked in a few times. It wasn't about leadership. I don't agree with Jeff there. It was about collective. It's past leadership now. We all have to be our own leaders, gurus and masters. Whatever you see in someone else, you can only see in someone else because it's in you. Everyone here, it's really, really important We don't see this as Fraser's life coming to an end. We see Fraser as carrying on. And every single one of us needs to see that. If you think Fraser's not going to survive, then he won't. And to be quite honest, it's up to Fraser. If he's had enough, then he's had enough. And it's amazing, we're all still here. We're all still partying. Some of us have changed, some of us haven't. And I love you lot, isn't it fantastic?
It is. Thank you, Mark. Okay, Caress thing here. Captain Caress.
Yeah, I'm interested in this idea of leadership. I don't know, I think there's a lot of difference between being a leader in the sense of ideas, of leading the world. It's a question of who picks up on it and where it goes. That could be real leadership, but trying to be a leader. Fraser was never all that good at that, actually, and he did try. But he puts together some amazing things, largely because of the amazing people he brought together. And that was partly because he was, as we said before, he was a great publicist. You know, he's got a lot of ideas, he likes to synthesize things, he's a conscious being, so he gets some crazy hairs up his ass. He brings people together in interesting and stimulating ways. When he tries to actually do that, he usually messes up. But when he just does his own thing as himself, he inspires nearly all of us from one time or another. He's full of inspirations that we both share, and he's given us a lot of places, ways to put them together. But as far as being an actual leader is concerned, he's dabbled in it. But that's not short-term. We've done some of the most amazing writings and some of the most amazing collectible ideas. We've brought all our lives on a hell of a long way. And if we can bring his along a little bit more, that would be a good idea tonight.
Thank you, Caress.
Teaching. So if you want to know something else about Fraser, you may all know it. You read about Gurdjieff because all his life Gurdjieff has meant a tremendous amount to Fraser. Still is. He works within that teaching, reading Cole, Ouspensky. I don't know the counterculture side. I don't relate to that side of Fraser. But I just wanted to say that because that's my. Yeah, he got me into that, and that was the beginning of me on the spiritual path.
And me too, by the way. Fraser got me into Gurdjieff as well, and that's how my nickname Gurdjieff comes out of as well. So I thank you for that as well, Fraser. Thank you, Fraser, for the Gurdjieff. I need the book back, by the way. Tributes, while Fraser's in the room especially. Someone want to come in with their own reminisce or their own view? Anybody? Okay. Fraser, welcome to the talks. This is a new sort of club. We do talks here and that sort of thing. Yeah?
It'll never catch on.
It'll never catch on. Never.
Must cry, man, don't cry.
Is Mark around? Mark, are you here? Mark? No, still not here. Does anyone else want to come in before we move on? Does anybody else have something to say? Or are we yes, nobody. Mark, are you here? You're supposed to speak if you are.
He's down in the bar.
He's in the bar. Tell him he's, yeah.
What are we doing today?
Yeah,
you want to kind of
okay.
Talking about a court case. Two seats. You can sit over the stairs, we can sit behind.
Fraser, we're talking about, we were doing personal reminiscences, but we're also talking about countercultural leadership and what it means or it doesn't mean, what it did mean, what it could mean. What is your view? Is there still a role for what's called leaders, or is that totally outmoded? You've obviously been through that one for years, but...
Well, right in the deep end.
Come and sit.
Well, you know, because all these communes and we're all going to be equal and all this sort of thing, it's fine as far as it goes, but we live in a dinosaur culture, so we're up against that. I just think, I was talking just the other night, that when it's led by one strong individual, somehow things can happen, because that individual can make fast decisions. Somebody comes up with an elephant, can we let the elephant in the club? Yes! Rather than, let's meet tomorrow, have a committee meeting, let us discuss it all thoroughly, and you miss the elephant. So I'm not saying one's better than the other, but somehow within our communality, we have to allow natural leaders, if there is such a thing, to come forward and give them some leadership space too, for all our sakes. You know, group mind doesn't necessarily mean we're all equally contributing. I know that's controversial for some, but you can see the problems with complete communes. They somehow can't make decisions.
That's your 5 cents worth. Careful. Okay, Mark Ely. Mark has been linked with Fraser's ideas for many years and developed his own thing, and himself was, quote, a leader in the sense in California. He was a very prominent force in the Rave Sea Mare and took a lot from Fraser and brought it to America. And Mark is going to talk about Fraser's role in the evolution of dance culture and the importance of that, and take us other places as well, I'm sure.
Thanks, Jeff. Great to see you, Fraser. I met Fraser, I think it was about maybe 88, and that was an interesting time. I think that Evolution had just been published, and I think the vision of Evolution was a real high point of that kind of late 80s rave culture. You know, amazing artwork, visionary content, brilliantly produced. So, you know, I knew some of the people that were involved in Evolution and got really inspired by that, and ended up meeting Fraser. So I think the first thing that Fraser said to me was that come along to the Zippy picnic on Hampstead Heath because there'll be 250,000 people there. And I thought, wow, there's 250,000 people, I've got to go to this, and this will be really good. And I turned up, and I think there was 6 people. There was Fraser, Rosie, someone playing a drum, and a couple of dogs. So I learned at that point that it was, you know, that Fraser is a great, circus barker. He's a herald of things, and likes to inspire them, not necessarily a good thing to take in kind of literally all of the time, because you might get a little bit disappointed in the turnout sometimes. So I think that what really, you know, in terms of kind of cultural contribution, one of the things that I think is really important to sort of understand as the kind of merging of two really significant worlds, certainly in my personal experience, was that Encyclopedia Psychedelica really represented the intelligent psychedelic underground in this country, and you know, it held the flame for that for really a long period. And I've always been interested in psychedelics and altered states of consciousness and all of that. And I've always been interested in the theorists and the ideas people behind that, people like Timothy Leary, people like John Lilly, Terence McKenna. And that had been a kind of strand of my life, and I kind of have been following that. But then I was also really into the dance culture, and I kind of come through that through like being into reggae and dancehall, and then hip hop, and then acid house, and then rave. So it's kind of funny to think back to a point where actually those kind of strands in my life were two like separate things. It was like you got the kind of intellectual, cultural side of things, and then on the other side, you got the, oh, let's play some music and go out and party side of things. So, you know, the whole rave explosion in '88, we had a really good panel discussion at the last Luminopolis, which Jeff hosted, and Morris and Kate and several other people came down to, and that was really good. And it reminded me about how amazing the energy of 1988 was when that sort of wave of genuinely astounding new dance music culture was happening, when acid house was kind of coming out of the club scene and moving into warehouses and just basically involving huge numbers of people. And you know, thinking back to a very special time where, you know, you had thousands and thousands and thousands of people coming to a warehouse party, driving 2 or 3 hours, turning up at these mad warehouses or just outside somewhere, and you know, having a really amazing party. And what the next step for me was that kind of moved that whole thing on was when, and really this I think Fraser should take like a large amount of credit for this, was recognizing the power of rave culture. That, you know, this wave of youth basically just doing what they wanted, going out and partying. You know, it's good to remember that a lot of the kind of innovations of rave culture were actually quite utilitarian. Like, you know, for instance, we did parties in warehouses because we didn't need bars. You know, it wasn't that someone thought this was a, you know, sort of artistic, conceptual thing. It was a utilitarian thing. It was like, you know, something which we could do, so we did. You know, because we didn't have that need to be cool, the need to have a licensed premises. All of that was pretty much redundant. So, you know, there was this amazing time where this, you know, really quite broad movement, which contained all sorts of different people, basically was happening on an underground level in this country. And if you knew about it, you know, you could walk down the street in London on a Monday or a Tuesday, you could see who'd been to raves. You know, you smile at them at the street. And, you know, it wasn't really until the tabloid newspapers picked up on it and published a series of truly ludicrous articles about you know, people biting the heads of pigeons and ecstasy rappers littering the dance floor and all this other completely made up nonsense, that this basically secret culture became something that was in the public view. So, you know, there was this really important step that needed to happen, which was the recognition from the people that holding the energy of the psychedelic underground, the people who were the ideas people of the 60s, the people who basically had kept that flame alive, but really didn't have at that point much of a social form. You know, it's like festivals, yeah, okay, but they weren't really dynamically evolving at that point. So what Evolution did, and what Fraser was largely responsible for, was actually bringing that intelligent, psychedelic, consciousness to these events and actually saying, hold on a minute, these things are significant. These things are actually important. They're part of a culture. It's not just people getting off their heads. It's, this is something which is actually a progression. And that fusion and bringing people and turning on people, as Colin Angus did with Terence McKenna, bringing in people like that actually transformed the culture and took it on to its next level. So, that bridge is something which basically has spawned a whole series of amazing events that still continue now. I mean, there's been a kind of like a sort of rolling mutation of the form, but basically the formula is still the same. It's basically heads, people who are into the alternative culture, people who basically, are committed to that, who are doing stuff, who are getting together with other people who are doing stuff, and making events. So that led to Megatropolis. It also led to Warp, and the Warp kind of sort of mutated into the Synergy project, which now is kind of sort of mutating into Luminopolis, which is like another basic variant on the same thing. Perhaps at this point, it would be good to reflect on the current state of things, that we could reinvigorate this culture. Looking around the room, there's so many people who are, have a contribution to make to this culture still. I really hope that we can keep that strand growing and keep it moving forward, because I think that the whole promise of this idea that the people getting together and dancing and exchanging ideas is actually a progression. It only really sort of like has any payoff if we then actually go and do that and take it further. So, I've been walking around this evening and seeing people I haven't seen for a decade, and it seems like a really successful time travel experiment for me. We just managed to beam back to that particular space-time coordinate where we were raising this energy in the place where it happened, and I think that it would be great to see seeds from this actually going into the future, because I think that this if we want to come bring it back to Fraser's contribution again, it's to say that we're not just here to see each other again, we're not just here to party. It's we've kind of got like this is sort of hyperbole. We've kind of got like a revolution really to get on with. That's, I think, the promise of all of this is that actually what we're doing is creating culture. So, we had in 1968 this massive psychedelic uprising, and again in 88, so here we are in 2008, and perhaps what we can do is make an affirmation to bring that energy, that, I think it's a cyclical thing. I don't think that, events like Megatropolis or, they're not meant to be there all of the time. These are things which happen in a specific moment, but I think the time is really right for a new summer of love, for an explosion of intelligent psychedelic culture, which can bring people together and prepare us all for the very rapid change which we're all living in. So thank you, Fraser, for your amazing contribution.
Thank you, Mark. Do we have any questions or comments? Fraser, would you like to say something?
With Obama being elected, and you see things indicating that the scene has to change, our specific subcultural scene as well as the mainstream scene right now, this particular year?
Well, I don't see problems, I only see opportunities. These things are cyclical. So I think that the kind of incendiary psychedelic conscious content maybe is like not at its peak at this point. And certainly, you know, there have been times where it's been like a much stronger force. But I think that right now that we've got an amazing opportunity. And, you know, it's, the forces are going to conspire to actually sharpen our minds on what it is that we really want to create. And the, you know, the sort of challenges that we'll be looking at in the next year or two, from, you know, just I mean, this is not like prophecy or prediction. This is just actually looking around and saying, okay, there's a huge global financial crisis. You know, basically, we're at the end of Western civilization, in my opinion. So, you know, where we take it from there is a really interesting question. And one of the things to remember about this culture is that, you know, celebration brought the hippies together, but actually what a lot of the really inspired people did from that is that they took it further. They actually moved out of the cities and started living in communes, started communities. And, you know, some of those didn't make it, but, you know, a lot of those are still around. So, you know, if we have another round of sort of large-scale, inspired conscious celebration, then, you know, perhaps we can inspire, like, a large-scale conscious celebratory back to the land movement, too.
We're going to talk a little later about the financial crisis and how we relate to that and what Fraser has said about that. But just for right now, to stick with what Mark has been focusing on, how are people seeing, this is 15 years since the original Mega Tripolis, give or take. How are people seeing the rave scene now? How are people seeing this scene that we're doing tonight, right now? Does someone want to comment on that?
Well, once again, I need to look around at you lot and just sort of think, my God, you know, were we all squatting and signing on and studying at university? Because I look around me now and I see people running their own businesses. I see people out there, pioneers in their own field, being on the television, in films, doing soundtracks. There's so much talent in this room, in this building, at these events. And it's just coming to fruition. When you talk about changes, ends and new beginnings, you know, maybe this is just a milestone point. This is just like a place where you can kind of like say, here we are. But it is only a milestone. It's a here and now moment. And I think for those of us who've been here for all these years, you know, it's not set to change. It's not set to change, you know. And for those of us who've got children, I think that our desire is that it's just going to carry on for them as well.
The most important thing that I saw with this venue and this person called Fraser was his desire to let us know we were one. And I almost died a few months ago, and hearing about the situation they had, I came over to this almost spontaneously because I've recognized in that moment how important we are to each other. And if we don't give each other like, and make those connections, they go away. And where the rave has to do with its expansion into the world is he's also an advocate of personal expression. It takes all those wild characters to make the whole. To bring all these characters in the same place reveals the whole. But then again, to act like this, to be like this in the world, is really the message about that, knowing we have all the support of all the conscious people and take our expression into the world, like he was just saying, into our professions and demonstrate the love and respect and the oneness that we don't often recognize. So that's what motivated me to work here, and thank you again for the opportunity.
I mean, we're talking about stuff that just doesn't get talked about a lot. For example, the Synergy thing. So most people in this room know that it was basically, after Synergy had an amazing initial period, it also then had a civil war, which maybe symbolized our own divisions, if you want to get metaphorical about it. Synergy, one of the Synergies is now calls itself Luminopolis. The other still remains at the Synergy Center. It's a long story, but basically Synergy has had its problems. What I'm asking here is, do people want to comment on the specific state of the scene right now? Is we're here where it all started. Where specifically do we go from here? What specific things do people want to see that they haven't seen go on in the alternative club scene, which Fraser certainly kick-started into action in 1993. Anybody want to come in on that? Talking about what's been going down in our club scene. Come on, audience, you can do it. You can do it. Not a single person wants to talk about the club scene. It's Fraser again.